you can tell, the topic, or to be more specific, the hero of this video is Sir Charlie Chaplin. But before we start with the legend, let's take a short history class. And invented cinematography. Well, it wasn't that fast and simple, but that's a topic for a whole other video. After Lumiere's films came the so-called stunt films, popular in the first decade of the 20th century. The main innovation of that time was the so-called hidden montage.
The directors stopped filming, changed the position of the characters or objects in the scene, and started shooting again, just as if the camera operator had filmed the entire scene without pausing. Using this trick, the filmmakers were able to create appearances and disappearances, transformations or miraculous movements of characters or objects on the screen.
These were the first special effects in movies. A century later, it doesn't look that impressive, but for people at that time, it was something extraordinary. Of course, now we even yawn in IMAX cinemas, but back then, people were terrified, and they ran out of the theater in horror during the arrival of a train at La Ciotat station. They were sure that the train was going to run right into them. And what can we say about the disappearance and appearance of objects? Mind-blowing. But neither the stunt movies nor Lumiere's films had a plot. Yes, they made a comedy, but the film didn't develop characters. It didn't cause the viewer to worry or guess what might happen next. Now we can't even imagine a movie like that. Although, with modern art house movies, everything is possible, I guess. And this is when our hero, Sir Charlie Chaplin, enters the game. What did Sir Charlie do that he's still considered the greatest representative of the era of silent cinema? Chaplin picked up the entire comedy genre, popularized it, and brought it to a new level for the whole world. His comedies finally acquired a plot. Now viewers were following an actual story, and the characters were not just perpetrators of random actions on the screen. Speaking of characters, when you hear the name Chaplin, what image do you have in your head? This one or that one? I'm sure many of you know Charlie as that guy with a mustache, a bowler hat and a cane from that old black and white movies. We associate him directly with the Tramp character he created for his films. The Tramp's first appearance was in the 1940 movie Kid Ought to Raise at Venice, and he immediately became a firm favorite with the public. Back then, clowns were especially popular, and Chaplin started from that image when he brought his character to the screen. But he wasn't only a clown. Chaplin created the ideal comedy formula for film, which is based on an obvious contradiction. Every gesture and act of the Tramp is a contradiction. Even his suit contained one.
If the bowler hat, cane and tie corresponded to the appearance of an English gentleman, then baggy pants, ill-fitting worn-out shoes and ragged elbows betrayed the tramp in him.
Whatever Chaplin's character does, his act harmonizes with part of his image and contradicts another. The character loser is always finding himself in embarrassing situations, but miraculously emerges victorious from the most difficult circumstances. This made viewers smile and empathize with the man on the screen. And if you think about it, little has changed since Chaplin. Funny situations like this are still the basis of modern comedies.
A good example would be Bad Teacher, starring Cameron Diaz, where the image of the main character is built on a contradiction. As a teacher in the school, she behaves in the opposite way to that of the classic teacher image we have in our heads. The comedic effect comes from misleading the viewer's expectations.
For the short sketch at the beginning of this video, we reviewed a few Chaplin films and noticed some characteristic details that contribute to Chaplin's unique style. So, if you decide to make your own silent movie, here are some things to bear in mind.
Films were black and white.
The first feature film, officially considered to be in color, was Becky Sharp in 1935. Chaplin himself didn't make his first color movie until 1967. He truly loved black and white cinematography, even when color movies became mainstream.
To make your film black and white is extremely easy. Most video editing software has an appropriate filter. In Movavi video editor, for example, there is a collection of retro filters that will come in handy if you decide to make a Charlie Chaplin-style video. For our sketch, we chose the retro, old movie grayscale filter. Titles.
Charlie Chaplin can rightfully be considered the greatest representative of the silent film era. Even when sound in the cinema became the norm, Charlie didn't change his habits. He used to say that silent films had a special place in his heart. His first venture with sound came out in 1940. It was the famous satire The Great Dictator, one of the best anti-fascist movies ever made.
We think too much and feel too little.
But how did filmmakers convey dialogues and the thoughts of the characters in the silent era? Titles. Usually dialogues were written in frames and shown between scenes.
For our short film, we asked our designer to create this vintage frame. And now we're going to add text to our film. Let's choose a font that is as similar as possible to the fonts used by directors of the early 20th century. That's usually fonts from the Western category.
If you don't have these fonts on your computer, you can easily download them for free.
Add a simple text title and enter the text according to the script. For our movie, we're using the Country Western font from the font collection. Done!
Silent movie doesn't mean no sound. Yes, of course, we don't hear a dialogue, but in addition to background music, which we'll talk about a bit later, a part of the soundtrack of the film was the noise of the projector. I think you'll easily recognize this sound. Tapers, mostly piano players who accompany a silent movie, were also a part of the movie experience. The audience weren't as silent as we think during movie showings either. Nowadays, talkative audience members are likely to be escorted from the cinema, but earlier people were talking, discussing what was going on the screen, yelling, all while the movie was playing. In reality, so-called silent films were impossible to imagine without sound.
Aspect ratio.
It's easy to see that Chaplin's films had these black bars on either side. That's because the aspect ratio was different in those days. We're used to watching films in 16:9, no black bars on the sides, widescreen. However, all of Chaplin's films were shot with a 4:3 aspect ratio.
Since 1895, the frame of most cinematic systems on 35mm film footage has measured 18 to 24 mm, providing a 4:3 aspect ratio. The absence of an optical phonogram on the footage made it possible to use the entire width of the film between perforations equal to 1 inch. In modern cinematography, such framing is sometimes called muted and is used in the Super 35 production format with a standard frame pitch of 4 perforations.
To change the aspect ratio in your movie, click Project Settings, select Resolution and choose 4:3. Click OK to apply the setting. Now your project matches Chaplin standards. Speed.
The first thing that catches your eye when you watch Chaplin's films is that the characters on the screen move in a strange, absurd way, slightly faster than in real life. The thing is that all early films were shot at a speed of 16 frames per second, but played in the cinema at a completely different speed.
The very first film projectors didn't have a stabilized electric drive, and so the movie technicians, who turned the mechanism manually, chose the frequency of the projections themselves.
Most often they were guided by the mood of the public. The role of the person who turned the handle of the film projector during a silent movie was considered no less important than the role of the creators of the film. It was even considered to be a kind of art. For a more quiet audience, a speed of 18 to 24 frames per second was used. And for the lively and active public, a film might be sped up to 20 or 30 frames per second. With this film played, which was shot at 16 frames per second, the characters on the screen looked as if someone had applied an acceleration effect to them. For comparison, it is now generally accepted that the normal shooting speed should be at least 24 frames per second. But how can we add that effect to our video?
We just need to speed our clips up a bit. Go to the clip's properties and set the speed a bit higher than normal. Background music.
Chaplin would always use background music in his films. The soundtrack was chosen according to the mood, the plot, and the dynamics of the film. In the chase scenes, for example, Chaplin used rhythmic, upbeat music. For more dramatic scenes, more dramatic and serious music was chosen. Even back then, music helped to convey the atmosphere on the screen. Let's add some background music to our video.
We picked country music from the video editor collection and added it to our short film. We think it's a perfect match for our comedy chase and titles. Additional effects. Let's add a couple more details to help us complete the film. The old movie vignette filter can help us recreate the film's flaws and distortions from the projector on which the silent films were played. Here you are. Add one effect, and the film is nothing like a modern film. Then, like any respected filmmaker, we add the final credits to our film. We chose Credits 1, left the same font, frame and effects. Listed our brilliant actors and voila, our film is ready. We just need to upload it to YouTube.
I hope you enjoyed watching this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Now we all know a little more about the cinema of the early 20th century and the great Charlie Chaplin. If we missed something, or even, "You're so wrong, it wasn't like that, what are you talking about?" we'll see you in the comments. Interesting. Will I be able to send my request to you without any words? I need the power of the Tramp to help me.